Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest installment of the ARC Smart Cities podcast. I'm Larry O'Brien, Vice President of Research at ARC Advisory Group. With me today are Jim Fraser. Good morning, Jim. Go ahead and introduce yourself briefly, and then we'll introduce our guest today.
Sure. I'm Jim Fraser. I'm the Vice President of the Smart Cities practice here at ARC, and we're very happy to have Andre with us today.
Yeah, and today we have with us Mr. Andre Ristaino, Managing Director at ISA, the International Society for Automation. Good morning, Andre.
Good morning. Thank you. Yeah. So.
So tell us a little bit about your role, and also we have some people on the line that are in smart cities, obviously, right? So they probably may not be familiar with ISA. So a little bit about you and a little bit about ISA.
ISA is a International Society of Automation. It's a professional engineering society. It has about 40,000 members, and its lot in life is to support continuing education, sharpening the saw for its professional engineers. We do conferences, publications. We have a refereed journal, InTech. It comes out 6 times a year now. Many more publications that come out more frequently. And ISA is also an ANSI accredited standards development organization. It's been around since 1945 and has published more than 150 standards. In 2007, and many of those standards they're North American ANSI standards, and typically they're submitted to the International Electrotechnical Commission, IEC, for internationalization. And so standards such as safety, wireless, many standards related to business processes for particularly process industries. And the most recent standard is ISA IEC 62443, which is a series of 15 standards addressing cybersecurity for operational technology, and where operational technology interfaces with what we recognize as traditional IT. So my specific role is I was hired in 2007 to stand up a conformity assessment organization to do assessments and issue certificates of conformance for company operations or products to standards, maybe development processes. And so that's what I'm doing. I have two of those stood up now. Recently, we stood up an organization called the Global Cybersecurity Alliance, and this was in response to the big challenge that we have on a global basis in securing automation that affects our everyday lives. So that's kind of the nickel tour on ISA and myself.
Yeah, and like I said, I think a lot of people might not be aware of ISA, particularly if you're in the smart cities segment. I know a lot of people in building automation might be aware of it. But ISA 62443 really is a far-reaching standard, and like you said, it covers a lot of things from secure development processes from your vendors to things like product certifications through ISA Secure and so forth. Can you give us a brief outline of what 62443 is comprised of? Because you said it's multiple standards, and I know
Right.
part of the reason that GCA was formed, this Global Cybersecurity Alliance, is that standards can be complex, and I think the quote was, standards aren't really written for the people that actually use them, right? So maybe we could just get a sort of plain English description of the domains that 62443 covers, and how that maybe feeds into this Global Cybersecurity Alliance, and trying to educate people about the importance of standards and what standards really mean to them.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I guess the starting off position is that the value in the standards is that they codify hundreds, if not thousands, of years of subject matter expertise in a particular area. It's like going to college. You have textbooks and they have all these factual information, so you don't have to go out in your life and bang your head against the wall and flatten it. gain the experience and get good at some particular area. So the standards tell you the what's, what are the right things to do, what are the right policies to address, that kind of thing. And then the next step is for folks implementing the standards to take the what's and turn it into the hows and the whens and that sort of thing. So the 62443 standards, they were initiated in 2005. And they're organized, there's 15 documents. It's about 900 pages. And they're organized into 4 broad areas. The first area establishes the context, the models, lexicons, and the structure, the words, so that if you're sitting down and talking cybersecurity, the same words mean the same thing to each of the people sitting around the table. I find that one of the most difficult challenges in when I'm having discussions about cybersecurity is that nobody starts a conversation by saying where they are in the life cycle of a system. And so that's one of the important things that these standards do. I haven't seen it with any others, where it views the automation and control systems from a life cycle perspective. And there's 3 broad areas. In the front end, there's the product suppliers who construct components and subsystems that are off-the-shelf pieces that are then cobbled together into a site solution, typically by integrators or maybe by a major supplier, but they're turned into a site solution. And then those site solutions are deployed jointly with the asset owner or facility owners and handed off for operations, maintenance throughout its useful life, and then retired. So when you talk about cybersecurity, you got to know where you are. If we're talking about putting security capabilities in the off-the-shelf products, then that audience and stakeholder group is the product suppliers. If you're talking about assembling them into a site solution, it's typically the integrators and what their integration practices are and best practices, that sort of thing. And then if you're talking about operating a secure site or facility, then the stakeholder is a combination of the end user and the integrator who deployed this system, and then anybody else who's involved in day-to-day maintenance of this. So that's key. So circling back to the structure of the standards, so there's the model, the lexicons, the general terminology. Then there's another layer of the standards that address all the topics that are relevant to a facility owner or asset owner, establishing a security management plan, maintaining your systems, patching, your working relationship with your service providers, who are the integrators and maybe maintenance people, and the like. Then the next layer of the standards addresses security capabilities and requirements for a system. And the system is typically an integrated application. And the next layer of the standards addresses security capabilities for components that go into the systems. So that would be embedded devices, software applications, network devices like routers, etc.
Yeah, it really is a comprehensive standard. I think that's what's good about it. And, it is a life cycle standard that addresses each aspect of the life cycle of a system. And that doesn't matter if it's a building automation system, right? Or even a smart lighting system, or what have you. So I think that's what's unique about it. And also that, like you said, there's been a lot of work put into this. This is not a new standard. This is many, many years of work that have been established by a lot of people who are, leaders in their respective industries. So definitely something worth considering.
Yeah. So, and the standards, they come up for review and improvement on every 5 years. So there are a couple of those documents that have been opened up, and based on what's been learned in the last 10 years, there are some really excellent improvements to it. But a little bit more about their applicability. So the International Society of Automation has a large population of automation engineers in it. So if you look at the language in the standards, a lot of it reflects the folks who are on the standards committee, and you see a lot of process industry language in there. However, the standards were deliberately written as a technology horizontal. And so for that reason, they're applicable to many different industry sectors. Building automation, you could look, they're being applied to medical devices. I've had inquiries in the automotive sector, energy sector, or electric generation, distribution, et cetera. So there's a lot of different sectors. So if you look at, so if you see that we've got these standards, you don't want them to be shelfware. So what are the activities needed to take these wonderful documents and get them from the shelf to implementation to where people can use them on Monday morning when they come to work? And so that cries out for education, other types of derivative work products, training, education, tools, techniques, work methods to deploy these standards. And also certification programs, conformity assessment, our products being constructed and offered to the market that are conformant to the standard. The conformance to the standard for products reduces the risk or likelihood that you're going to have a cybersecurity event. And then you go all the way out to the asset owner, the facility operator. There's standards that, if implemented properly, their operations will be more secure, and it addresses their security programs, maturity level of their policies and procedures, procurement practices, their maintenance and update practices, et cetera. So we've done some of that with the Security Compliance Institute and the ISA Secure program. We're certifying products. We're going to move that program into certifying the integrators and then the facilities themselves. But again, the enabler the glue is bridging that gap between the published standard and implementation. And so that's what the Global Cybersecurity Alliance's mission is. So if you look at various organizations within ISA, you have like Automation Federation that runs logic. That's that linking oil and gas. And cybersecurity, they mainly do R&D related to control systems. And that's fed back into different areas. ISA Secure focuses on certification, and ISA, the main ISA organization, publishes the standards and manages the standards committees and does training and education. And so the GCA's objective is to scale this up, do it on a larger basis, have multiple companies contributing, and address sector-specific issues like how-to guides and usage guides for securely deploying technology in the building management or smart city space. And another series of documents were developed on medical devices, how to apply the 62443 standards for securing medical devices, and you can just go on down the line.
Oh yeah,
other issues
we all know
related.
The state of cybersecurity and medical devices is not so great. If you read the news and so forth, there's always new vulnerabilities being exposed, and the practice of the industry, I don't think, is up to par either. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, I think, across the board. Whether it's medical or building automation or facilities management or what have you, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Andre, this is Jim. Can you quickly covered a couple of different areas: the standard, education and training, and then certification. Can you just quickly go through what assets are available today, and how does someone who's interested in the domain actually source them? So, where do you get the standard? Number one, and then number two, what training and education materials or courses are available today, and which ones are forecasted for the future, as well as maybe a little bit more about the certification programs for devices and for integrators themselves.
Right. So, generalized cybersecurity training is available from the SANS Institute. They're a great organization. They do a great job there. More specific to the 62443 standards, ISA has 4 or 5 training classes that address the standards specifically. And it also issues certificates to personnel who take the classes and pass the test at the end. It's not a certification like a professional designation. It's just a certificate program that says you've taken the class and you understand that body of knowledge that you just took. So ISA, you can go to the isa.org website, and there's a lot of free material you can download. There are training classes. There's books and materials. Also, ISA has a big publication operation as well. And so that's the source for that. One of the I think, and what's going to happen is these certificate programs are going to evolve into certifications. One of the things that I'm asked frequently is, so we certify, right now we have a product certification scheme, ISA Secure, and product suppliers go, okay, that's great. Do you have a class that tells us how to use the standards for securing products? And we didn't have that. And so, in discussing what some of the futures
for the vendors to take to make sure that their products can be certified, right?
Right. So,
yeah.
They want to do the right thing.
Can you just back up a second and can you tell us about ISA Secure certification, for those that might not know? Because I tell you, I see a lot of products out there in the world of smart cities, but there aren't a lot of products that have any kind of indication that they've been, quote unquote, cybersecurity tested, right? There's very little mention of that out there in the world of smart cities. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about this product certification program and what that means and why that means that products are secure.
Yeah, so in the building industry, most people are familiar with UL standards, and UL, has traditionally addressed safety issues like, capacities for transmitting electricity without things getting hot and catching on fire and other sorts of things like that. So they have a big footprint there, and the industry in general, and for technology, is always focused on, and this is all industries, functionality. I want a product to do new things. Nobody asks these suppliers about cybersecurity, and so it's just recently that this has bubbled up, and everybody's scrambling. What's the right thing to do? And cybersecurity has always been viewed as kind of like this black art, the guy with the hoodie and secret sauce. And so what the standards and their certification scheme are attempting to do is move addressing cybersecurity from a black art to an engineering discipline. And so the 62443 standards, we use the 4-1, which is a development process standard. It looks at this product development life cycle and addresses 8 practice areas to ensure that they're being used by suppliers for securing products. If the suppliers are doing that, there's a pretty good probability that their products are going to be more secure. They're never 100%, but it takes you in the right direction, and it's standards-based, so there's a level playing field. So there's a 4-1 standard, there's a 4-2 standard, which addresses security capabilities, like two-factor logons, just functional security capabilities.
Okay.
And so this ISA secure certification is an assessment of products and ensures that A, it's under configuration control and it's addressing the 4-1 security development lifecycle requirements, and B, that it assesses and confirms the security capabilities. There are 4 levels of security, 1 through 4, 4 being the sophistication level of a nation state, level 1 being just inadvertent things like self-inflicted wounds, putting a contaminated USB stick in a device, that kind of thing. So, and then the other dimension is the actual product testing. Most of the time, when you talk about certifying a product, people have this vision of testing, like what UL does, turning up the heat until something burns or breaks.
Right.
And so the testing is tells you something, but it's just a point in time, like crash testing, and it's for a specific model and version and that sort of thing. So, but yeah, those are 3 dimensions: the assessment of the product security capabilities, the actual testing, and then confirming that the product was developed under a secure development life cycle.
Yeah, both really important.
So yeah, so that's it.
Yeah.
And then,
Well,
right,
Andre,
that's for the products.
you mentioned 8 parameters or functional evaluation areas. Are those the 3 of the 8?
No. So, so if you're looking at the security development lifecycle, and I don't have all 8 of the practice areas for the security development lifecycle memorized, but it addresses the area of secure architecture for a product. So we would expect to see that as a product's developed, there's a security architecture, evaluation, review, and design. So it's secure by design, and then secure development, like secure coding practices, which is way down in the details. And then there's testing. And so we expect to see, I think it's 6 categories of testing, like communication robustness testing, static or binary code analysis, broadcast storms, flood testing, for like denial of service. And there's some other categories of testing. And then probably most important, and you don't see this with other standards, is incident response plans, communication plans, patch management plans. Mm-hmm. And so those are many of the dimensions of the practice areas that the auditors will expect to see, and they look for artifacts at these companies to ensure that if they've declared that they're conformant to these practice areas, they'll go down and look at the testing artifacts and other artifacts to confirm that they're actually following them.
That's pretty comprehensive.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, there and the standards, they've defined software or products to characteristics of, you can do updates to a product, which might be patching of a bug fixes, and then there's upgrades, which is typically something like a major release with new functionality. And so the way our program is set up is that it's assumed and confirmed that the products are under configuration control, and that they have a patch management, patch release, and notification process. So the end users have said, yeah, we've been living with this for a long time, so if we're getting updates and patches, we can manage that. And so there's no requirement for recertification as those patches come out. But if there's a major upgrade, that means there's new functionality. Well, that's a different attack surface. So we have this maintenance of certification policy that says if there's an upgrade, you have to do a reassessment of the product. It may be a partial, but not the whole thing. But if there are patches and updates, you don't have to do a reassessment. And so that makes it economically efficient for the supplier so that they can kind of parse what additional work they have to do to keep their certification.
So for our end users out there in the smart cities and building automation community, has ISA started to, has ISA Secure, I should say, started to certify products in that sector as well? And what's out there and
Yeah.
what's going on as far as that?
So, we have pretty good recognition in where we started in the traditional process industry, oil and gas, chemicals, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And in 2016, we did a study with companies that sell and support building management products, Johnson Controls, Siemens, Schneider Electric, Honeywell, there's some others, and we included some end users in the study. And our objective was, we're just very conservative about saying our program, ISA Secure, works for anything without having subject matter experts from that industry do the reviews and confirm it. And that's what we did. And so as a result of that, there was a big pickup in interest from the building management supplier space. And we added, in addition to Honeywell, the Honeywell process systems were members and supporters, and they're having products certified. Schneider Electric, same thing, but both of those organizations have other divisions with building management systems. And so what they ended up doing was taking what they learned in from their process industry certification programs, and they had to implement their own internal security development lifecycle processes and get those audited. But what they did was they took what they learned there and they transferred it, like with Honeywell, to their building technology group. And they did it for pennies on the dollar. A lot of the same technology that's used in process industries, embedded devices, some software, other types of products, go into building control products. A control system is a control system. And in the end, maybe the application interface might be slightly different, but the guts of it's the same.
Yeah, so I agree.
So that's why, I emphasize that the standards were designed as a technology horizontal and applicable to a lot of sectors. So they headed there. Johnson Controls did an evaluation of standards and certifications available for their products, because they're not small. They're $30 billion a year, all building controls, services, whatever, products. And they do all the building systems for the Pentagon, for instance. And they do a lot of work with the DOD and federal government, as do the other ones. And so they have the DOD and federal government requirements as well. And so they're seeking a way to secure their systems standards-based that are applicable to the private sector and the DOD and federal government in the USA. And these guys sell products globally too. So you're looking at the EU and Japan, et cetera. So that's another whole conversation. But,
well, Andre,
it's
interesting that the standard really is application agnostic, because in our smart city domain, we tend to think of a smart city as having 9 verticals, and I'll just list these because I think the standard applies to every single one. One is buildings and building automation, energy infrastructure, telecommunications and backhaul infrastructure, transportation and mobility, health and human services and all that medical equipment, water and wastewater infrastructure, waste management, public safety, police, body cams and all of that, and payments and finance. I could see where this standard touches all 9 of those major smart city verticals.
Pretty close, yeah. The one area that we always beg off on is like the financial sector. They kind of got into the cybersecurity game early on and have a lot of things that do well, but there are some dimensions of that where this could be applicable. But for sure, you look at buildings, energy, telecom, transportation, hospitals, medical devices, water and wastewater.
Yep.
at least half of those are sweet spot for ISA anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
We have, so, we've gotten interest from lighting manufacturers like Philips, and there's an organization called Design Lighting Corporation that does functional testing for energy efficiency. But a lot of these organizations that that service these sectors that you're describing, had functional specifications that they do certifications to, but they were missing the cybersecurity piece. This is all new, and everybody's scrambling. And so it's great that 62443 can work for most of them. They don't need to reinvent it. They can include, a reference to 62443 and getting 62443 certified as part of their product certification. So, this is good. Our biggest issue is just going to market and letting people know that this exists, so they don't go out and try to rewrite it on their own.
Yeah, I don't think that would be effort well spent trying to rewrite a standard that basically already exists and is very comprehensive. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
Yeah, AARC, as well as myself personally, are very active with the Illuminating Engineering Society. And as we all know, that lights are becoming nodes on the IoT network in buildings, outside of buildings, and everywhere. And certainly, there's a great need there for cybersecurity. They're woefully lacking in that regard.
Yep.
I could see a great application here.
And and there's no bad guys here. It's just that nobody to ask for it, or there wasn't a perceived need for it years ago, and so it takes 5 or 10 years to turn the underlying technology around in a product category. So, but yeah, there's a lot of companies, they're doing a lot with the lights and light fixtures. Sylvania, Osram, go down the list. I've talked to a lot of these companies, and my biggest challenge personally was working predominantly with ISA Secure. And our budgets were oriented towards building certification schemes and enhancing those. And we had a small budget for marketing. And so, and we were getting constant calls from our members to address other things like legislation. And so, I've been up to DC and presented to FERC, and been to Europe. I did a joint study with the EU for a certification scheme there. And the supplier's big concern is, they want to do the right things, but they want to do it standardized, and if they want to have a certification, they want that certificate of conformance to be recognized in the EU and the US with the US DOD, the feds in the US and Japan, et cetera. So that's another one of the, for the Global Cybersecurity Alliance. We're not a lobbying organization, but what we want to do is be an active participant and omnibudsman, and to try to stitch these groups together to keep them to harmonize these requirements and certification schemes.
Andre, can you? I don't know if we went in enough depth on the Global Cybersecurity Alliance. How was it founded? How many members are there? How does one get involved?
So I would say probably for about the last 3 years, members of the Security Compliance Institute poked at me and said, hey, there are a lot of things that ISA should be doing. And, you could do more. You're the perfect place. You're an independent, not-for-profit. You don't have an axe to grind.
Right.
So you could be the place to organize. And so why don't you guys go do this thing? And I was thinking myopically about ISA Secure. I'm like, well, we don't have much of a budget. We can only do this. You guys are billion-dollar companies. We need you all to help do this. So finally, there was some discussion, and one of the suppliers pushed hard and said, look, let's start a new alliance then, and put bigger money into it. And so that was discussed, and then internally at ISA, we looked at it, and I became involved because I'm running the consortia. And we said, okay, we think we can stand this up, and the timing is good for it, and there's an appetite. So we put together the structure and the usual PowerPoints, and talked to a number of suppliers, and everybody was really positive about it. So we said, okay, we're going to run with this. And so a few weeks ago, we made an announcement. There were a number of suppliers who were early thought leaders that thought it was a good idea. And so we worked with them, and they helped shape what this thing looks like. And so the early adopters, if you will, are Honeywell, Johnson Controls, Rockwell Automation, Schneider Electric, major suppliers, and then a couple of cybersecurity technology suppliers, Clarity and Zomi. And so that was the kickoff. And so we announced it, and we're actively recruiting now. And, we're having continued success. And periodically, maybe once a month, we'll announce new members, but, it's who's who. The response has been
membership isn't restricted to just vendors, right, Andre?
Absolutely not. No. So, we recognized early that, having a balanced representation of stakeholder groups was important. So, we talked to the suppliers first, and we're talking to end users now. Obviously, I'm going to go back and talk. I've already presented this to some of the big oil companies that are all ISA secure members, and there's genuine interest. And just to demonstrate how much interest there is. So, for instance, our board members with ISA Secure are paying $50,000 a year as a board level member, and Global Cybersecurity Alliance, the top level founding members are going to commit to $500,000 over a 3-year period. So, like $250,000 the first year and $125,000 each year thereafter for forever, for as long as we exist. And a lot of them are paying both, and they're at first I was surprised, and I stepped back and looked at it. I said, well, people don't just spend money like that if they don't think they're getting value. So the fact that companies are signing up for both of these things, there's, to me, that's a validation that there's some value in this, and that they feel good about the money spent. And so to become a member, anybody can become a member. We're mainly looking for companies. We're not looking for individual members like ISA. That's an individual membership society. And so we're looking for companies who can provide funding and resources, obviously. And, we're going to continue to recruit. So the big stakeholder groups that we'd look for is the suppliers, end users, asset owners, facility owners, then technology providers in cybersecurity, like the Zomis and CyberX, go down the whole list. And then the going blank here on the mainstream IT providers, because they're part of this whole puzzle too. So you look at the IBMs, the Microsofts, the Googles, all the basic. You don't see if you go to a process industry, you don't see a control system that's not using either a Linux or a Microsoft workstation as its interface, right? And so, the Cisco's and the networking component providers. So everybody that's in the value chain, whether you're a supplier, an integrator, that's the other group, the integrators. The consultancies that are doing, consulting and assessments and that sort of thing. And the other group that we're extremely interested in is the insurance companies. They've been struggling to find objective underwriting standards for a number of years now.
Yeah, and good point. You're right on there. Yeah.
I mean, 4 years ago, I was part of a DHS committee, CDAWG, CIDAWG, dog.
Yeah, they have some good acronyms, don't they?
Yeah. Cyber Incident Database Working Group. And so they were trying to cobble together a big giant database that they could query to do some analytics on insurance underwriting, like, is it people, process, or technology, which is most important, et cetera. And so I participated for a while, but I also have an IT background. I asked them, what specific questions are you trying to answer? Because if you don't know what they are, you can put a database together that can't be queried to answer the questions that you want. And they didn't really know, so I kind of just faded out of it because I didn't see that their approach was broken, and their hearts were in the right place, but the approach wasn't. And so, but that's a problem that we want to solve. But if you have standards and a way to, if you can certify to a standard, then that means you can measure. And, you start out with maybe some imperfect measures, but this whole thing's going to take the same trajectory as the safety world. When safety standards first came out, people are like, oh no, safety is squishy. You can't codify it. You can't measure it. Well, today there's mathematical formulas, right?
Right.
And so we're trying to move this whole cybersecurity thing from, black art into an engineering discipline.
Yeah, something that's measurable and improvable.
Right. Andre, I'm impressed that
right.
That it's not just a vendor-driven initiative, that you do have your balanced stakeholder communities, as well as I see in the genesis of the GCA, New York County, as well as City of London and other public entities played a role.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. We have a lot of people who have their fingers in the pie and push this thing along. And, there's, it's not me, there are a lot of really, really good people that are rolling up their sleeves and making some things happen. So, that's good to hear. Yeah.
So, Andre, if I'm an end user, owner, operator, where do I go? What are some of the resources? How do I get started? Maybe give us a brief list of places we can go to find out more.
On the GCA?
On GCA, on ISA Secure, and just ISA.
Yeah. If anybody wants to know what's available, they can they just send me an email, I'll personally take care of directing them to the resources, depending on what their immediate question is. There's always an immediate question, and then there's the rest of it, right? And so, I'll try to answer the immediate question and then give a briefing on what else is available. We have ISA offers training and education and books. So if you go to isa.org, you can see what resources are available off that website. And that also has links to the ISASecure.org website. If companies are only interested in certification, ISASecure.org. Companies interested in the GCA, they can contact me directly, and I'll send them the prospectus and the membership application, and we will set up a teleconference to brief them and their teams on what we're doing and how they can participate. Because there's something for everybody in the GCA. You can be technical, you can do white papers, participate in the government and regulatory dimension of it, which I think is extremely important. There's just so many ways to participate.
Okay,
well,
and
Andre,
how would we get in touch with you, Andre? You said we could get in touch with you, and
that feel free to share my all my contact information, my email address, aristaino.isa.org.
Andre,
my phone number, my cell number.
Well, we won't share your phone number here on the podcast, but okay.
No, but Andre, can you spell your email address for our viewers?
Yeah. So email address is ARIS like Sam, TAINO @isa.org.
Great.
And my office phone number is area code 919-990-9222. And I'm happy to share my mobile number. It's 919-323-7660.
Okay,
Thanks,
well,
Andre.
hopefully you get a ton of phone calls after this podcast airs. I really hope so, and good phone calls. I really think this has been a great interview. We really want to try and raise awareness of what ISA is doing, especially through the GCA and a lot of the resources that you already have out there as far as certification and training and everything else. We're kind of getting near the end. Is there anything else we want to cover here before we sort of wrap things up, or?
Well, we're doing a lot of stuff. A new project is I'm working with the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, NEMA.
Yes, yeah.
And we were prompted by the U.S. Department of Defense to stand up an industry-led certification scheme for facilities. And that would be commercial office buildings, it could be military bases, fuel depots, go down the list, right? The reason that they are inspiring this, it's not DoD sponsored, it's DoD inspired. They published a set of what they called Unified Facility Controls, which is their cybersecurity standards, and it's used by the DoD in federal office buildings. And so they need to, so all the federal properties need to comply with it. Well, they did the math. The U.S. government and DoD owns $1 trillion of real estate, more than 500,000 buildings, and I don't know how many millions and millions of square feet of space. And they said, okay, all that needs to be secured. We've got our rules, but we didn't get funded for an audit function. They had no way to audit. So it's like IRS rules without the IRS to enforce it, right? So they said, well, what do we do? And so they wanted industry-led, and the industry wants it, industry-led. And I've been at multiple meetings, and all the suppliers are saying, line up this certification scheme for facilities, for building management systems at these facilities with 62443. We've spent 10 years investing in them, and they're good. Let's go with that. And so we're working on that. All the suppliers are on board, and we're putting together a presentation for the commercial and corporate real estate owners like C.B. Richard Ellis, Wells Fargo, Boston Properties,
Wow.
Go down the list.
Yeah.
And so they're going to tee up that group, and we're going to present it and see what their level of interest is. And if they say, yeah, this makes sense, then we're going to stand this up like the LEAD program. And so it'll be industry led. And if it's successful and the industry gets on board with it, over time, if you fast forward 10 years from now, likely it'll end up being a reference certification similar to LEED program certifications. Now that you have county and municipalities putting LEED requirements, which is a private certification, into their procurement specs, right? And so that's where this could land. That's where they would like to see it land. And then the federal government and the DoD would say, look, just go with this 62443 building management system certification scheme. And so that's new.
That sounds really
needless
promising.
to say, I'm busier. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm busier than a one-armed paper hanger with poison ivy.
Well, hey, we'd love to have you back to talk about that in more detail as you progress. Maybe we'll have you and NEMA come on. Tell us about what you guys are doing there.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping to have our next meeting in the next 6 weeks or so. So, in the next 60 days, we'll probably have more concrete direction on that.
Sounds good.
Great. Well, Andre, thank you very much for your time. This has been very instructive and enlightening, and we're very happy to have had you. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks very much, Andre.
Thank you.